Yeah. Hello everyone. I'm Louis. I'm working at the Aragon Association, mostly coordinating teams at Aragon, working on the product, um, and doing a bunch of other things. Uh, I have a short presentation today. I've never done it before. I came up with some slides yesterday to replace one of my colleagues at Aragon, but I'm really happy to present that to you. It's a blog post I've been working on, and I'll be hopefully releasing that in the near future. It's a kind of walkthrough about governance in digital organizations in a community perspective. We definitely know that community is like a key thing in crypto networks, DAOs, or whatever digital organizations I will call them here. Um, and we know that often like what has been happening in the past, it like there's this random white paper that is thrown out in the web, and then you have a bunch of people gathering around it because they find common interest into a common goal, and then they start collaborating and working on some forum, and then they start making decisions according to a governance process that they agree on, and they start working around this cause and developing their project. And so what I would like to go through today is I don't know, maybe it's a bit small. Um, it starts with a community gathering around a goal, and I will first like quickly show how digital organizations are these very specific entities compared to traditional organizations, and are mostly like just communities. Then we'll see how these communities sort into stakeholder groups, kind of self-sort into stakeholder groups, and how these stakeholder groups behave in the ecosystem logic, like Bitcoin miners, Bitcoin developers, Bitcoin users, and how these digital organizations just rely on an ecosystem logic that is really characteristic of them, and then how these stakeholder groups are united and agree according to a governance process and governance model, how this governance model can evolve through iteration, because digital organizations are bytes and are computer based. We can iterate over them, iterate over their governance, and then I will like give an intuition like inspired by, of course, like the well-known Albert Ishman exit, voice, and loyalty framework of organizations, give an intuition of the game that happens, and like the rules that basically the rules that lead this game. So let me go through this quickly. So basically, the point I'm making in this first slide is that governance for the first time, like the real paradigm shift here, is that digital organizations are stakeholders. They are a community. So basically, traditional organizations have been running and operating in different ways. They're embedded in the legal system, they're embedded in physical assets, they're embedded in different scattered things. Digital organizations are bytes, and that's everything that they are, at least for now, and that's also very theoretical, because of course we have legal frameworks and all that. But there's a shift where, like, by law enforcement is enforced by a software run on the blockchain rather than humans. We have this new organizational form, which is where like digital organizations are networks of nodes and vertices, rather than mostly like pyramidal company or organization. These organizations live on the internet instead of having a jurisdiction or geography. Their assets are mostly like open source software, and then they run just like in the ether of the internet. And they have like for decision making, they have the governance process that is basically at the heart of the network rather than at the top of the pyramid for decision making. And so here we can see that in this organization, like here, everything is bytes, it's code. Right? The only thing that is not code here is the set of contributors that can be machines or humans. And so um, So yeah, this basically these communities of humans that now that we know that basically everything is worthless in digital organizations. It's a bunch of lines of codes in the internet. It has absolutely no value, no cost. There's no proprietary algorithm like Google can have. There's no physical assets that are hard to replicate. It's all about code. And the only thing that has value is the community that participates, the stakeholders, the humans, the developers, the miners. And so what is characteristic of these digital organizations is really this ecosystem logic between users, the different stakeholders. For example, in the example of Bitcoin, we have these users, developers, miners. We have two key stakeholder groups here, which are miners and users. Without users, the network is worthless because people don't buy Bitcoin, they don't use it. The network is worth zero. Without miners and security, the network is worth zero too. It is worthless because it has no security. And so we have a logic where like we have this set of contributors and stakeholders who are like working for the network and benefiting also from the network. Miners are working for the network and earning rewards. Users are basically paying fees and buying Bitcoin, and they can use the service and benefit from it. And so there's this, now that we have like that these are communities behaving in an ecosystem logic. And now we have the role of governance. We have this community, we have this ecosystem logic, and everything is united around the governance of this organization. So here, governance tools are the heart of the organizations. Basically, what actors do and stakeholders do is communicate on information and make decisions on this information. They communicate mostly through forums, and they make decisions either through rough consensus in organizations like Bitcoin or Ethereum. But they also, like, for example, in Aragon, we use on-chain voting and many different tools. We have conviction voting research by, for example, organizations like Common Stack and all of these really exciting things. And so this is the thing that unites. We've seen it in the past. For example, Ethereum has been forking into different entities. We have different forks of Bitcoin, and basically each time it's like the governance consensus failing in its mission of protecting the growth of the ecosystem of stakeholders, which is basically the heart of the engine of the organization, and the network effects that are embedded. So if the organization splits, it loses value because it loses, for example, in the example of Bitcoin, it loses security, it loses users, activity on the network. Bitcoin will lose value. And so to get the organization together and to glue it together, the governance process needs to be perceived as legit. And so stakeholders are going to first agree. So there's an iteration process where basically sorry guys. So yeah, people get around this common, like we've seen it white paper, for example, in the past. On this forum, they are interested in a common goal. Then they agree. There's I should show it like that. There's a common goal. Then there's a community that forms around it in the web, because the web is so costless and stuff. Like everyone has the access to fluidly and freely navigate towards its area of interest, gather on some forum, and then there's something happening. We have the tools to structure all this activity, and then there's a community, and then itself sorts into stakeholder groups. These stakeholder groups form agree in a governance process. We have a governance process, but what can happen in this, we've been seeing that in the past, for example, for Ethereum or Bitcoin, it breaks, and the organization splits into different organizations with new governance processes. And so what's really wonderful here is at the cost of nothing, and just with a community, we can iterate over governance, and basically iterate again and again until we find a governance mechanism that we all agree on and that we can just keep, and that we can just like work on. And so basically all this happens according to a social game, which has been described, well-known Albert Ishman exit voice and loyalty thing. So we can imagine that over the years and over iteration, an organization that breaks apart doesn't break apart, has a governance equilibrium where stakeholders feel comfortable like working together for a period of time. And so the governance equilibrium is a state of the organization that will enable it to grow and to grow its stakeholder ecosystem and then its value and basically be more and more able to achieve its mission. And so basically, I will not get into the game theory of this game. But basically, we can imagine that we have this network that has value, overall value, and that, for example, if governance process is not well adjusted or well designed, some stakeholders will overpower the others and take decisions in their own self-interest, and that at some point, like a stakeholder will want to leave because if it stays, it's losing too much value. It should better like fork the organization, create a new one with new governance settings, risking to lose. For example, you've got a stake in Bitcoin, you sell all your Bitcoins, provided that liquidity is maximum. You just like leave the organization without losing value, and then you create another organization with different settings. You create Bitcoin Cash, and then with another community, you start your own thing that you perceive like there's more value into. And so basically, it's a game between stakeholders where like they each kind of can overpower the others, and if they do it too much, someone may leave. It's kind of the intuition here, and we can formalize that with a game. Sorry. Yeah. So that's the end. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so it's a kind of an idea to try to formalize from a community perspective the formation of our organizations and basis to and we can really go in depth in each of these steps. I mean, we could say a lot about each of these, and we also like. Yeah, I mean, for in the iteration phase, for example, like we have tools also like CAG and all that, computer-aided design that can help iterating and stuff. So not everything will happen through human iteration, but I mean, as time goes on, and also yeah. So final word. Sorry, I think that not every organization has this ability to really be easy to iterate on. For example, Ethereum, you have to fork the repo, recreate your own organization, bootstrap the security. You have to have there's a significant cost to do it. One thing, for example, with Aragon is that you can really do that. I mean, one thing I find beautiful with Aragon is that it's so easy to iterate over the settings and the permission system and the settings of how the organization is designed. And so you can basically launch 100 of new organization for just like a bunch of dollars. Which makes like iterations much easier, and I think it's going to be great for people to experiment and find their the governance models that suit their goals and needs.
Thank you, Louis. There's so much to say. It's a struggle to stop. That's all right. Do we have any burning questions, Max?
I was curious if Aragon is looking at any going beyond game theory to like differential games and temporal dynamics of governance systems, other than like to avoid the high cost of forking a community. Can you evolve the governance processes in time? Is that anything you're looking at in like using differential games rather than just like one-shot game theory to have like complex adaptive governance systems? Is that stuff you're looking at, or I mean, it ties into the CAG and all that kind of stuff?
So no, I mean that's currently we're really like that's just so yeah, we're really like product oriented at the moment, and we have really limited resources, and devs are working like, and even the research people are working hundreds of % of the time on the releases and of the product and growing the organization and all that. So we don't currently experiment. It's more like a theoretical idea, but I mean I've recently learned about, for example, the ideas or work that you guys are doing, for example, like using these tools that can be more sophisticated and help us like maybe find the right models for different use cases faster. And so, yeah, that's just an idea.
Did you have a question, Fanny? Quick one.
I had a question on how do you see this process, or like the pain points, or the how you're gonna, what steps you're gonna take to apply that to other maybe non-blockchain companies? Because we talk about digital organization, and the community is a real concept for other non-blockchain companies.
Yeah, so I think that like many organizations in the world are operating also like in communities in general that are operating in a somewhat like flat and decentralized and self-organizing way, and I think like many also are doing better than what we're doing in the blockchain space. I think we're really early on that. We're good at technology, but not that good on other things. And so yeah, I think that we have to bridge everything together because like this is. I mean, that's the same as the internet. That's costless, like costless access to something. Like it's always about costless access to energy, to the internet, to steel, to electricity or whatever. And I feel that here we have costless access to organizing. And so I think that it can be really a tool that we can use for real world use cases. And I hope that it will like mutate and find its first use cases. I mean, we're still looking for them, but and support like real world organizations and entities and communities.
Thank you so much. Great. Another round of applause for Louis.